Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. I am Kevin Wallace, and we have a hell of an episode for you today. There is so much going on in the world of FC Cincinnati that, oh boy, we really needed to sit down and break it down. There are new MLS rules that impact what may be happening to FC Cincinnati star player Lucho Acosta. Is another MLS star headed to FC Cincinnati? What's going on with Luca Orishano? He finally showed up to training, but what's going on there? And surprising no-show at training this week. We get the latest on that a little bit later on. There is a lot more that goes into building an MLS roster, building an MLS team, and boy, FC Cincinnati certainly sits at a crossroads. We try to take all of these stories in and around FC Cincinnati. We break them down for you. We get you ready to answer questions around the water cooler from your coworkers, from your family. What the heck is going on with this team? We try to help you out here. We wrap it all up with some Patreon questions. Is FC Cincinnati still ambitious? Questions to be asked, questions to be answered. This is the Postcast. Joining me to talk about all of that and more, I'm joined by the one and only Chief. Chief, how does the weekend find you?
Oh, man. What a weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, spent a whole day without TikTok. World didn't end. That was a dicey 8 to 10 hours there. Like laying on my couch before bed. I don't know what to do with myself. I was like, I guess I could go to sleep. I don't know. No.
You need to be comforted by like 320-second long videos before you go to bed.
Right. You can't properly prepare yourself to go to sleep until you have scrolled past 1,000 different people competing for your attention and deemed them all unworthy. It's like, no, you will not be the person that keeps me awake. Not you, maybe you.
I gotta say, I never felt more validated and never downloading the TikTok app than when it was banned. And then I felt like a real moron when it came right back the next day.
Right. Should the post be on TikTok now? Considering all of the kerfuffle that was caused by the cancellation and uncancellation of TikTok, are we missing a key demographic by not being on the TikTok?
It would be really funny to be on TikTok, but only talk about something else. Like it's actually just Subway content.
Or it's just Grayson. Like Grayson will appear on no other platform except TikTok. It's just Grayson dancing from his home in the lower basin. All he'll reveal about where he lives. But like fully on camera, Grayson just doing interpretive dance routines.
It's Grayson's body cam footage from skiing. It's just, that's all it is.
And it can't be Broadway songs he's dancing to. It has to be actual TikTok like trending songs.
Yes.
Of which he knows nothing about.
He will love this plan.
Yeah, it's just Grayson does trendy dance. This is how we win. We have Opie doing lo-fi beats on YouTube.
Oh,
and we
God
have Grayson
bless you, Jonah.
And we have Grayson doing TikTok dances to popular trends on the TikTok. Who wouldn't want to sponsor this kind of content?
Come on. That's what I'm talking about.
That's exactly right.
Man, it would be, I think the post should be really active on like a very obscure social media platform. Like we might be the only one still
around.
Maybe. And that's all we post on.
What would be the most obscure social media platform you could be like really active on? Vine's dead. Blue Sky is, it never really launched the way people were hoping, I don't think.
It got like halfway there.
Yeah, it was had it shine a little bit, but then, the X, the everything app, it's all happening on X, that, it just, it's a monolith. You can't get rid of it right there. Is Friendster still around by any chance?
Yeah, we got to go backwards. I think that's the key. We got to go back in time. We got to find like an old bodybuilding forum or something that is just like
Is AIM still a thing? Can we get like an AIM profile?
Yes. And we'll have like a dedicated chat room. Yes.
Yes. Or just an away message that's really cryptic that makes people question what happened to you during the day. That's how you have to submit your Patreon questions is you have to locate the post on AIM and send us an instant message.
And it's just like my real friends actually show up. And
right.
You're like, whoa.
I don't want to talk about it right now. Going to bed. And it's like
oh my God. Oh man. Well,
throw an ASL in the chat if you remember being chronically online back in the day.
Yeah, it would be good to find like an obscure game where we are like active in the game and building like a guild or a community there.
Like Second Life or something like that. Yeah, get back into that. Yeah. There's got to be something out there. I got to look into it. Like maybe something really bad, like a text-based MMORPG from back like in the early 90s.
Oh yeah. Ultima. Is
there Ultima Online? Server?
Yeah. We'll have
our own custom shard or whatever it is. Oh, yeah. EverQuest. Hell yeah.
We'll get an EverQuest server up and running. It'll be fun.
It's like one of those ones like, like Star Wars Galaxies or something like that. That's all defunct.
Star Wars Galaxies was fun. Star Wars Galaxy had the greatest idea ever, which was you just drop in, you're a part of the Star Wars universe, and you could be a bounty hunter, you could be a soldier, you could be all these things. But the one thing you couldn't necessarily be was a Jedi. And like 1 in 5,000 accounts, you would realize that your character is Force sensitive, and you could complete this very convoluted quest line to become a Jedi. And they were very rare, and it was very interesting. And then they realized
that's all people want. That's all anybody want to do, right? Yeah, no, this game is no fun if you're telling me I'm locked out of the cool stuff.
Yeah, people were selling Jedi accounts for like $5,000 at its peak.
The old internet was the best. I miss when the internet was hard. Like the internet has the internet and everything about this has gotten too easy. Like it used to be hard to play games online. It used to be hard to find information online. It used to be hard to connect with your friends online. That's what we need. The post needs to be on a social network that's hard. It's hard to find. It's a great way to grow your podcasting platform. Don't be on the places where it's easy to find. No. Be on the places where you really got to seek the content out.
But here's the thing, though. The people that find you, ride or die. They will not leave you. It is a only growth model. It's slow, but it is only growth.
It's an invested growth model. You're very invested in the content you find if you put this much effort into finding it. The other thing, too, is that if it takes a lot of effort to find, you're going to think it's better than it really is to justify the time sink you put into finding the content. It's like, no, you don't understand. These guys are really good. It took me a really long time to find them.
Right. Think about it. The best bar in town is not the biggest bar. It's not the bar where everybody goes. The best bar in town is the one that's hard to find, has the nondescript door, the one that your friend has to take you to the first time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Then it closes because no one's there.
Don't worry about that part.
Don't worry. The economics are sus, but everything else is
we don't have to pay rent. This is not a physical world problem we have to worry about.
This is how we should launch the oft discussed among you, me, and Grayson MLS version of the postcast. Is we're not going to tell anyone we're starting an MLS podcast. It's just going to be out there, and if you find it, good on you. We're not going to tell you what it's called. We're not going to tell you that we started doing it. You're just going to have to find it on the algorithm somehow, and if you do, hey, you get to learn about MLS for an hour every Thursday.
The only hint will be we'll reference the show every once in a while on this show. Like
we'll just say that
we anecdote.
On the other show we taped, but never tell you how to find it. And it doesn't matter how many $2 postcast Patreons you submit asking what's the other show you guys do. We're never going to tell about it.
Are you familiar with the cicada scavenger hunt?
No, does it happen only once every 17 years?
Kind of. So I forget the code that was after it. It was a cicada 3225 or something like that. And basically, it's a very cryptic image showed up on the internet one day. posted on some sort of forum, and then it was quickly taken down, but enough people had saved it, and analyzing the photo, you could like dig into the file of it. There were hints and clues as to other places on the web you could go, and you go to these places and it'd be like strange sound files, and if you played the strange sound file backward in a visualizer, it would give you a Morse code, and that was an address you could go to or a phone number you could call. It eventually bled into the real world. You had to go to these cities and find these little information drops, and the people who made it to the end, there were like 3 or 4 people that like were documenting that they got very far, disappear. So the idea was that like this was some sort of CIA or some sort of like elite hacker recruitment agency, and they were trying to see how far you could get into the program. And then they got you. And then you were good. You were off.
Wasn't
grid.
this also the plot of The Last Starfighter, if I'm remembering correctly?
Something like that, yeah.
He got recruited to fight the Kodown Empire or whatever it is because he was so good at the video game.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
That's exactly it. So yeah,
my life is boring. I never come across shit like that. I have so much free time now, and I don't see things like that. I need more of that content in my life.
We need to make like a real life game, and at the end it's just a QR code that takes you to the podcast feed.
To the podcast, yeah. Somebody send me on a quest. I need a quest to do of some sort.
We need more quests in our lives. Quests. Oh, well, here, I've got a quest for everybody.
Like, talk about all the nonsense going on for this team right now?
Not yet, no, because the quest has a location, has a time, has a date. You need to be there or you will fail the quest. Folks, we are doing a preseason season kickoff live show on Monday, February 17th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Gold Star in Alexandria, Kentucky. That is right. You thought we were done with Gold Star? Folks, we're never done with Gold Star. Live show Monday, February 17th, 7 to 9 p.m. Be there, be square, or be there and be square, whichever.
Square is cool. If you want its hip to be square, Huey Lewis once noted.
Don't be a rectangle. You might not fit through the door. Squares should have no issue getting through the door. You'll probably be familiar, as every single listener went and immediately ate at Gold Star when they were sponsoring our shows last year. It's not the biggest place, so be there early and make sure you are there to have a seat, and we will have a lovely time before the season kicks off. Season kicks off that Wednesday. This is the Monday before the Honduras match, so come on out. Should be a great time. Chief, Are you excited for a live show from a Gold Star?
Nothing would make me happier at this point. I have no idea how we're going to pull this off, but you know what? Damn it, we're going to try. Many people noted when we got sponsored by Gold Star that, are you going to do a live show to Gold Star? That would be hilarious. And you thought that was funny. Kevin Grayson and I looked at each other and went, you're right. That would be hilarious. Let's see if we can do this.
Absolutely.
If we'd have made it a little farther in the playoffs, I think the plan was going to be to do it in November, but unfortunately, well, we don't need to rehash that. But you know what? I can think of nothing more appropriate to preview and kick off a epic start of a rivalry between Cincinnati and Honduras, like going live from a Gold Star in Alexandria.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Come on out. We'll have more details in terms of programming and guests and whatever else as we get a little bit closer. But go ahead, save the date. Like I said, it's a quest. All right. Last time we did prizes, Chief. I was giving away Cincy shirts, gift cards. There were referee themed koozies.
Ooh.
The first stickers and the first hats that anybody got of postcast merch wise were handed out at the last live show. I know you weren't able to attend, but
in spirit, I called in. Ooh, I might have the first giveaway item set that we can give away. Oh. It's a limited edition, one of its kind Cincy Postcast T-shirt, designed and based on a very famous group locally in Cincinnati, and I'll leave it at that. It exists. There's just one of them. And if you get it and you're there, wear it with pride. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Oh my God. Chief, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you still have the Becky Zimmerman book?
Oh, do I still have the Becky Zimmerman book?
He's leaning over.
Do I still have the Becky Zimmerman book? Hold on here.
Uh-oh.
Oh, do I still have the Becky Zimmerman
right
book?
There. Play on. A Walker Zimmerman story. Oh my God.
Still right here. Still right here. Just waiting for someone to claim it.
We may have to give that away too. I don't want to tell you what to do with your possessions.
We're definitely giving that away because I have an extra copy. Don't worry about it.
I'm so glad you have 2 copies.
Gotta have one digitally. I need that with me wherever I go.
Yeah, it's true. For a while there, the punishment for saying Messi's name was having to read a page out of the book. That was a great time.
That was an interesting time in the postcast lore.
Hey, you know what? I like to think we helped lead the charge in MLS of the Messi pushback. He was a little overexposed for the league. So.
Just a smidge. Kevin, it has been a week for the FC.
It's been wild.
It's been a wild week. There is no off season with this team, especially now that the preseason has kind of started.
Yeah.
Where in God's name do you want to start with what's going on with this team's news?
I mean, again, this is like my classic rant with, I'll say, the traditional media. Because if the Bengals had the problem that FC Cincinnati has right now, it would be leading every single local news entities. Yeah. It would, oh my God, it'd be all over ESPN. It'd be all over Fox. It'd be all over every talk radio thing. Nuts. This team has a showing up to play problem right now. And it's starting to get a little better, but
so I guess we lead off with that then. So everyone always thinks of the MLS season for the FC kicking off when the team goes to training in Florida, when they go down to Clearwater. Right. That's not entirely the case. There is always at least some time period, a week and a half, 2 weeks, where the team begins training here locally in Cincinnati, either at Mercy Health, or sometimes they use the Bengals indoor training bubble down on the river. But the team comes to Cincinnati and they leave from Cincinnati to do their stint training down in warmer weather. That's where they play their preseason friendlies. But this is really the reporting to training camp happens here in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And for better or worse, when the FC reported this week, we had some prominent no-shows. Some of them were not surprising. Lucho Acosta, not present for training. He has been in a dispute with the club since the end of the season last year when he asked and told reporters he was done with the team. He's repeatedly reiterated that. He is basically begging any team in South America to make an offer to sign him or to acquire him. He's not around. Not surprising.
Yeah.
More surprising, Luca Orishano was not present for the start of training. Although I think there's a caveat with that he arrived later on in the day on the first day. He apparently completed his medicals that same day, and he is back with the team after just one day. But for about a 12-hour period or a 5-hour period, there were some panic buttons going on with Luca, especially in light of the fact that he had just had an offer made for him reportedly to Cruz Azul that we talked about in the last podcast.
Yeah.
And no one really had an idea what Luca's headspace was. Was he holding out to force a move? Nobody really knew.
Yeah.
The most surprising to me, Yuya Kubo, who was not present on the first day of training. I don't know that we've heard that he's present at all yet. He has. I haven't seen it or heard anything. And so all not present on the first day. And so you naturally wondered, okay, are some of these excused? Is there a reason? Is we not hearing? Well, then Pat Noonan goes and gives a press conference or gives a statement to the media after the first day of training.
I got these quotes here if you want.
Read the quote, because there was little doubt where Pat stood on the non-appearance of these three players.
Yeah, which I do want to give a quick shout out. Damon Gumbert, the Post's own, was able to attend training and was able to write up a story on the website covering all of this. So please go read it. I'm going to read directly from Damon's story here. So this is Damon writing, and then I'll indicate when it's Noonan speaking. So Damon wrote, Noonan did not mince his words when talking about the missing players. Quote, disappointing that they are not here, Noonan said. Quote, it is a setback because of how we have to start the season with the combination of CONCACAF Champions Cup and leagues play. We experienced what that looked like last year. Noonan goes on to say, quote, there's a lot of guys who would love different contracts, different situations, but they showed up. Whether you like it or not, you have an obligation to show up. This is not a man willing to sit back and say, these matters are out of my hand. I don't deal with the money. I just got to coach the guys that are here. Nah, he's disappointed. And I don't know what this looks like. The preseason's long and they'll play their way back in, assuming they show up. But man, if this were a little closer to the start of the season, I wouldn't be betting on Yuya Kubo walking into the starting lineup or Lucho walking into the starting lineup. He seems pretty pissed about this.
No. Interestingly, also on that same note, Laurel Failer, well, this isn't a direct quote, tweeted as well afterwards. I also spoke with Kevin Denke for a feature I'll be writing in the near future, but without me even asking about it, he brought up the absences. He's still assured he made the right choice in coming to FC Cincy despite that, but I included his insight in the piece. So
I wondered if this would have some ramifications with Denke, because, I mean, you never know. World football is crazy. Guys get sold. Big money offers come in all the time. Things change. You got to trust the sort of organization you're signing up for at a certain level. But he saw Luca Orshana was going to be here. He saw Lucho Acosta was under contract for the next 3-4 years. And if I remember correctly, he mentioned getting to play with Lucho looked appealing to him and things like that. So, man, you really hate to immediately start putting that in the back of his mind. It's one of those things, too, that can cascade. And I'm sure Yuya Kubo feels like his usage and his performance last year was worthy of more money. I wouldn't even necessarily disagree. You kind of have to look at maybe the totality of money he's made at FC Cincinnati and the totality of contributions. It probably all comes out in the wash a little bit there. But then, like, God, if Kubo's doing that, I mean, not to throw gas on the fire, but like Pavel Buka's minutes and usage last year, he's looking at his numbers and he's way underpaid compared to the rest of these guys.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. It's bad vibes right now.
Yeah, it's bad vibes-ish. I don't know that it's bad vibes, though. I mean, part of this is just being a successful team and suffering a little bit from success.
Yeah.
This is not unusual in world football to have stars that are, we'll say, mercurial in their relationship with club and with management, and even stars who profess their love for the club will still have problems with their compensation, how things are being handled, how positions are being handled, how minutes are being handled. This is not wholly unusual. Mm-hmm. I think there's a couple things at play here. I think number one is that this is just yet another example of how difficult it is to manage a roster in a salary capped league, where if FC Cincinnati is playing in just about any other league in the world, hell, even the USL, after a season like Yuya Kubo had, maybe you throw him a couple $100,000 more bucks. Why? Because he earned it. Good soldier. I agree with you on principle. I agree with you what you said earlier, and I said this online, that in Yuya Kubo's situation specifically, if I'm FC Cincinnati, I'm looking at this situation saying, you grossly underperformed your DP contract. Grossly. And you took less money to come back here because you liked it. You don't get to turn around and ask for more money after you have your the first year that you've had where you've exceeded the amount of money you were being paid. Like, that's not how this works. Good on you for trying, but get the fuck back into camp and let's go play some soccer here. And maybe we'll think about things if you have another season this year like you had last year. But you kind of took us for a ride for the first couple of years you were here. And good on you for sticking with it. But we're not going to cry tears over Yu Kubo being unpaid. I love Yu Kubo. I think he's a great value add to this team. He was a anchor around the neck of this team salary-wise for multiple years when he wasn't living up to his DP contract.
The last 2 years, or I will say 2 years ago, you and I think particularly, were saying that they should buy out Kubo. That like his contribution to salary ratio wasn't it. I'd even go a step further and say his contribution last year is probably not worth a DP contract as it is. Like he did a lot of good work, don't get me wrong, but like if you told me last year that we were turning Yu Kubo into a DP on the back of that performance, I think everybody would freak the fuck out.
Revolt. But where I think that there's a problem, if there is a problem, is again, there are some bad contracts on this team. And if I'm Yu Kubo or I'm Yu Kubo's agent, I'm a little miffed about Sergio Santos making close to $1 million, given what I contributed to this team and what Santos contributed to this team. And, you know, not for nothing, I'm looking at that contract that Corey Baird has, which I don't think is that much higher or that much different than what Yu Kubo is making. And Corey Baird was awful last year. Right. And he's back on that same number. And just looking at how they're paid relative to one another, I think if I'm Yu Kubo, I've got a little bit of a problem that you're willing to give Sergio Santos close to $1 million. And I'm, after having a much better year, a much more effective year, doing whatever is asked of me, this guy is still making more money. But again, that's the joy of working.
How contracts work.
No, it's not how contracts work.
You can't run a team that way.
It's not under contracts work. A, and B, it's especially not how contracts work in a salary cap league. Right. You can't just give people more money when they're on a value contract. That's you've got to work around that.
This goes back to my ideal version of a sports league, and I feel like MLS is close to it, but the NBA would be perfect at this, which is it is a redraft league every year in the NBA, and your salary is based on your draft position. And that's it. So every team gets a similar-ish looking squad salary-wise, and it's just all based on draft picks.
You better justify your draft status there, or else there's going to be a problem.
Exactly. Hey, you want more money? Play better. Next year you get drafted a little higher.
Real easy. Play better. Corey Baird is making $644,000. Guaranteed comp of $712,000. Okay. Yu Kubo last year $721,000. So he's making $9,000 more dollars than a player he outperformed to a comical degree.
Right. And even not just at a goals and assists number, which is probably the easiest thing to compare them on, but then Kubo was also extremely useful in the midfield and as your backup wingback and all of that.
On minutes, he lapped the hell out of him. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, I get why you're mad, but sorry, it doesn't work that way. It's never worked that way. Luca Orishano is, I'm glad that resolved quickly, because the Cruz Azul thing, we never got a number. There was a rumored number out there that they were offering. I think the rumored number is they were offering double what FC Cincinnati had just paid. So somewhere in the neighborhood of $5.6 to $6 million, which if that's the case, total non-starter for Orishano, especially at the value he provides for the club. And also noting that I don't know what the number is, but I'm absolutely certain that his former club still owns a sell-on percentage of Orishano, which, and
it was hefty. I want to say,
I would say like 40%, 30 or 40%, something like that. I think
Grayson had mentioned that in the Discord. Which, hey, shout out to the post Discord. Feel free to join. It is free. You can join. There's a link in the description. But Grayson had said, given that 40% sell-on fee, you might need a number at around 8 million to even begin the conversation of turning a profit on Orishano. So.
So it was always a non-starter on that deal, but we have seen how players are when bigger clubs come calling, because bigger clubs can offer more money on personal terms. And, the fee to FC Cincinnati might only be $6 million, but if they're offering to double Luka's salary, that's something FC Cincinnati can't do unless they want to make Luka a designated player. So it was good to see that he's back. And if he's back, and this is like, we're good on this, everything about this is good news for Luka Orishano. I've been thinking about this. He now had the tires kicked by a big club in Mexico.
Yeah.
He is firmly in a position where if he plays the start of this year like he played last year, there will be an even bigger offer for him in the summer. From any number of teams. It could be from Europe at this point. And then you do have to think about selling then at that point. But like, that's a future us problem. It is good that he's reported. It's good that he's not going to try and sit and force his way out of FC Cincinnati, which it was for about 5 or 6 hours. It was looking like might be the case. And then you get the Twitter detectives like, oh, he's removed FC Cincinnati from his bio. And it's like, oh,
always
God.
Scary.
Always scary. Look, shout out to the Twitter detectives, the Bird app detectives. That's terrifying when when a player on your favorite team removes the team from the bio. Oh. That's the Facebook status changing. It's complicated right there.
I remember a couple of years before Messi left Barcelona, he was in a contract negotiation with him, and he followed Chelsea on Instagram. And that was like the biggest news in the world. Like, oh shit, would he really?
Really? No, there's no way. It's dumb.
I will say too, because we'll touch on our good friend Lucho Acosta here in a moment. This team without Lucho, but with Luka, is very different than this team without Lucho and without Luka.
Like, without Lucho and Luka, it's problem time. It's like big time problem time.
It's scary, and that's where you go to ownership and you break out the emergency funds to bring in somebody. Right. But you can see a path forward with Luka as a creative player alongside Denke, and we should have a very good defense this year. All of that jazz should be very good. But yeah, that's for Luka Orishano though. This puts him in position to be the face of the team, one of the star players, right alongside Denke. So good to see him back. Excited to see him back, and glad it was not a multi-day or week or weeks long contract negotiation and transfer negotiation. He came back.
It's done. They got it sorted out. Yeah.
For what it's worth, I don't know exactly how linked these were, but Cruz Azul is signing what's his name? Matias Bogas from LAFC. He's an attacking midfielder. Some folks online, particularly on the Mexico side of the border, were saying that Orishano was the backup plan to Bogas, and they got that deal done. So I don't know that offer is even still out there for Cruz Azul. So not too bad.
It's not bad. It's good. It's but like I said, watch this space, because I think that what this proves, if anything, is that I think that there is going to be a robust market for Luka Orishano in this offseason or this upcoming season. And I think that it is going to be an ongoing storyline of bigger and bigger clubs courting the services of Luka Orishano, especially if he continues to play the way he has. I think that it's a rocket ship. And if this was a stock, I would be investing heavily at this point in Luka, and we may have him for a year. If we have him longer than a year, it probably means something has gone wrong at this point. So I think that you never want to root for a player to leave, but in this case, I think that if you're rooting for Luka to play well, I think you're rooting for Luka to leave at this point, and that's a good thing for FC Cincinnati. I don't think the news is quite as good with the last no-show, and that's Lucho Acosta.
Yeah.
it's interesting that, so this is going to tie into a couple of different stories that are running concurrently in MLS. So I'm going to back up here for a second before we talk about Lucho Acosta, because there was a rule change that was made or that had been rumored for a while. It had been talked about over the winter. I think we had mentioned it in passing here on the show at one point.
Yeah.
But it was made official within the last week that MLS was changing rules to allow for players to be purchased in MLS using just cash.
Yeah.
So if Team A wants to buy a player from Team B, they can do that with cash. Previously, the only way to acquire players in MLS would be to spend GAM. Or I think GAM. I don't think you can trade TAM. So the only way to do it,
trade TAM.
The only way to do it would be to trade GAM or trade super draft picks, or you could trade the allocation order back in the day. That's gone right now. So really and truly,
spots,
international spots. So really and truly, the only way to acquire a player would be to trade GAM. And so if you wanted to trade for a high value player, like a designated player, you would have to have the team trading the DP be okay with receiving $2 million, $3 million in GAM. And there's some problems with that. Number one, if you paid $10, $12, $15 million to acquire that player, selling them for $3 million in GAM, gonna seem like not great, even though we know how valuable GAM is in the league. GAM's valuable. It ain't a 5x conversion valuable from cash.
It's maybe 1.25,
right. No, it's like
better.
It's like
something.
Basically GAM is like Canadian dollars in terms of what its value is, or pounds.
The inverse.
Yeah, it's like buying pounds. I think like British pounds. Additionally, GAM, and I don't know that people know this, but GAM doesn't exist. GAM is it's credit within the league. Like, if you sell a player for $2 million in GAM, that isn't $2 million in cash. It is $2 million in this MLS currency that is then taken from the team that is transferring reserves and added to your reserves. So if you are an owner that made a discretionary spend of, again, $10, $12 million to acquire a player, you're not being made whole financially as the owner of the club.
Right.
You're just getting this like $2 million in league fun bucks monopoly money that you can then spend more money out of your own pocket to improve the club. So good luck convincing an owner to take a full 100% loss on a player trading them within league. Now, within the league, if you want, you can pay cash for players. There are still salary cap implications that go along with that, just like there would be if you paid cash to acquire a player from overseas.
Yes.
So it's not like a workaround or a hack for the salary cap or anything like that. It just opens more avenues and options to acquire players in league that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll mention two other quick things here. One, with this new mechanism, if you are using cash to acquire a player from another team, you can only use cash. So you can't combine cash and GAM or cash and draft picks or whatever. So just a little tweak there. And then the last one is, if a player is acquired for cash in the league, they carry the same designation. So you can't buy another team's DP and turn them into not a DP. They have to carry the same designation with them moving over to your thing. So
but
again,
I do think it works the other way. I think you can't downgrade a player from DP status.
Correct.
But I think you can acquire a player and then make him a DP as a result of the cash. In fact, in like a lot of cases, that might well have to be the case if the acquiring cash amount would be too much to amortize as less than a designated player for the player you're acquiring.
You could imagine a scenario where like a LA Galaxy does offer $10 million to acquire Luca Orishano. Not the dream outcome, but if somebody's willing to pay that, and then he would then become a designated player in LA in that situation.
So why I bring this up and why we bring this up now is that Lucho Acosta is very done with FC Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And the prevailing rumor for Lucho Acosta has been that he wants to go back to South America. He has openly pined to join Boca Juniors. It seems that they are very disinterested in acquiring Lucho Acosta. The team he has been most associated with seems to be Corinthians, I believe in Brazil. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Is Corinthians in Brazil. There have been nothing regarding what a rumored number would be. It's been rumored as a loan by some people, an acquisition by other people. It doesn't appear to be imminent, regardless of what the situation is.
Ooh, you want a little conspiracy theory?
Yes.
Wouldn't be surprised if Lucho Acosta and Corinthians or another club have a sort of gentleman's handshake agreement that if somebody's contract were to be terminated, it might have a salary waiting for him. I know nothing. I have no inside information. Would
it surprise you though?
But
not a conspiracy theory guy. I am a connect the dots kind of guy. So there is that.
Yeah.
The latest thing that broke this week was Tom Bogert, I believe, was the first person on this, that with the adoption of the cash transfer system in MLS, the two most likely people that he had listed to move as part of cash transfers were Evander, who is an attacking mid for the Portland Timbers, who is on the outs with the Timbers right now for a number of reasons, which we can go into here in a minute because he does relate to Cincinnati, and Lucho Acosta, with the destination that is being rumored by Tom Bogert and others as being FC Dallas.
Yeah.
Now, you may ask yourself, what? Because the whole story with Lucho is that, he wants to leave and go back home.
Of course.
He wants to go back to South America. There are any number of rumors you can look to as to why that's the case. We don't talk about that sort of thing, here. But more intrepid minds than I have determined that Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, and Miami, the only cities in the United States with direct flights to Buenos Aires, Argentina. So
interesting. Maybe
if you can't get home, get someplace where you're just one flight away, a direct nonstop flight to be home. I don't know what it is, but either way, Tom Bogert reports Lucho Acosta has been discussed heavily as being one of the players who would be one of the first to be transferred under this new cash transfer designation for MLS players. Kevin, when you read this week, what were your thoughts?
Man, I have two thoughts that immediately come to mind, and I don't know which one. I've got two wolves inside of me, and I don't know which
Kevin,
one.
There are two competing takes.
So first take is if Lucho Acosta ends up, after all of this, with another MLS team, this is a colossal failure of Lucho Acosta's primarily and FC Cincinnati's as sort of secondary. We dance around it a lot. I'll just say the only bit of information we have in terms of Lucho Acosta being looking for a move has to do with his relationship with his, I'll say, family. All right, I'll leave it at that. The relationship with the family maybe needs some work. So if that's the case, and then the argument is, or the idea is, he'll go back home, he'll go back to Argentina. Okay, you know what? I can live with that. It sucks. I can live with that. Not very different circumstances, very different situation, but like Danny Koenig wasn't able to play a key USL playoff match way back in the day. Family issues, sometimes family does come first in this stuff. Okay. So I on one hand, it's that of like, he's looking to leave. He wants to go back. All right. Argentina makes sense. He ends up at an MLS team, FC Dallas. Whoa, get out of here, man.
Yeah.
That is a betrayal. That is a sports betrayal to end all sports betrayals. He goes from build the statue to burn the banners.
Yeah.
Like, I'm way out.
This is Big Cat being a Patriots fan is what this is right here in terms of sports betrayals. This is
awful.
It's
so here, let me tell you the other take.
Okay, go with the other take because I've got lots, but I want to hear what you have to say.
the other take is good riddance, get out of here.
Yeah.
You have been angling for a move for a while, whatever the number is that makes sense to ownership to get something back. I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea. What's a fair market value for Lucho Acosta? He got hurt a little bit last year, but before he got hurt, he was having an even better year than his MVP year. He is on the wrong side of 30, but modern science has these guys playing great until they're 38, 39.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. So if we could get 5, 10, 15 million for Lucho Acosta, it doesn't matter where he goes, get out of here. That he's become a headache that you could see ownership turning that money into something useful, something better. And you do get the sense that Noonan and the rest of the team has been built around Acosta, and it's panned out. It's worked out well, but you wonder how much they wanted to do that.
Right.
and so they would open up the playbook.
Here are my thoughts on this.
Yeah, please.
Thought number one. It is a betrayal if he stays in MLS, because then at that point, I'm going to need to hear, in order for me not to come out of this just absolutely despising Lucho Acosta and being Frankie Amaya level boo on sight.
Yeah,
I'm going to need to hear a really compelling argument about why Dallas is so much better than Cincinnati when this town has been ride or die with you. You know, it's not like it's been bad here. You've won Supporters Shield. You've been part of a consistently winning club. The club is bent over backwards to accommodate your play style, has
MVP,
moved players that you didn't get along with and couldn't work with.
Brought in your best bud, Yamil Assad.
Yeah, all that. And I'm going to need to hear something. And again, like I said, if it's I want to go home, I've got, personal issues that require me to go home, fine. I can't think what the personal issues that would require me to go to Dallas would be. I've been to Dallas. There's no personal reason that you need to go to Dallas, especially
and it's Frisco. It's not even like the
it's
cool
not even
part
real
of
Dallas. Yeah. So I would definitely need to know that. At this point, though, where I'm at in the Lucho saga is I am just ready to move on.
Yeah.
And every day that this lingers on is it's frustrating, and it's every day that it takes to move on is one less day that this team has to figure out what's next in time for the season to start.
Yeah.
And right now, as we release this episode to the masses, we're recording on January 19th in the evening as Baltimore drives down the field for a late touchdown. It'll be the 20th when we release this. The European transfer window is only open for 2 more weeks. And I get that there are lots of other options out there beyond just what is in the European transfer window, but your options to replace Lucho Acosta decrease the second that window closes in this time frame. And I don't want to go into this season thinking, okay, well, we have to replace Lucho in the summer window. Like,
yeah, I
would like to get this done now. And if a sale in MLS facilitates that, you know what? Whatever.
Yeah.
And it should be noted that unless they've changed this portion of the rules, a player doesn't have to consent to a trade in MLS still. So he may have to reach personal terms with any place we're selling him to or trying to sell him to in South America. If we work out a deal to sell him to Dallas, he's Dallas's problem immediately, and he has no say so about any of that, unless his contract specifically has a no trade clause in it somewhere. And those are apparently very rare in MLS.
I wonder if a DP necessarily has one, just because it's so rare that DPs get traded.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine Dallas. Yeah, we'll send you $10 million for him, but we have no idea if he's going to actually play for you.
Right.
That would be just an absolutely wild move.
I mean, not unlike what we did with Kevin Kelsey and Portland, which is like, hey.
Oh, my God, Mark Andrews just dropped the 2-point conversion. Wow, he was wide open. Oh, good riddance. You hate to see it to Baltimore.
Well, there's your MVP race.
It could not happen into a nice. Oh, he had that. it's harder to drop that than it is to catch it. Sorry, dual brain right here.
No, but
I feel like KLR right there watching the live reaction to football games as they're going on.
No, I was just gonna say it becomes somebody else's headache to deal with Acosta, right? That like. Not unlike what we did with Portland and Kevin Kelsey of like, man, Shakhtar Donetsk is such a pain. If you can figure it out, you'll get a good player, but we don't want to do it.
We're done. This. We're not ready to deal with it. So I'm like, if you could sell me on the Dallas move, not from Lucho's point of view, but from FC Cincinnati's point of view, if they were like, look, they had the money, they were willing to pay, we got a full GAM conversion out of it, because that's the other thing.
Yes.
If we go the route of Kevin's conspiracy mutual termination, no GAM conversion for that.
No.
You sell them to FC Dallas for anything more than $3 million. These MLS cash transfers operate the same way as cash sales abroad too, where you can convert up to 3 million of that to GAM immediately. Oh. And boy, wouldn't that help this team right now in any number of ways. And you open that DP spot up immediately, which can help at the same time. So,
man,
I'm just ready to be done. I'm ready to be done. Like, it's over. Any part of me that was holding out hope that this situation would resolve itself, the bridge is burned and the ashes have been pissed upon. Like, there's no coming back from any of this. It has to. It's time. We have to rip the Band-Aid off. He needs to get out of here. He needs to get out of here in such a way that we make some money off it so that we can solve some of these other problems on the roster that we have. And they need to, whoever they're bringing in needs to get the hell into Cincinnati, because the season is about to get started here. Yeah.
Now, this is where it gets fun, Chief. You would need to replace him with somebody. And you mentioned
I did.
Evander, another MVP candidate last year. Hell of a player in Portland. Brazilian attacking midfielder. 5 years younger than Lucho Acosta, much better shooter, much worse team. I'd even say much worse coach and much worse field, depending on your view of a bad grass field versus an artificial pitch. Evander is furious and pissed off at Portland. He says that there's been a number of promises broken in Portland. He loves the fans, and based on his social media posts, he feels genuinely sorry for the fans that they are stuck with Portland's ownership group. And I'll tell you, you talk to most of the Timbers Army, they feel the same way.
There with you.
They would not disagree in the slightest, and probably fully agree with all of his complaints about the team and ownership. Just would like the really good player to keep playing for their team. That would make sense. Now, if Lucho Acosta were to go to another team, maybe it's FC Dallas, maybe it's somewhere else, there's an argument to be made that one of the first targets FCC should be looking at is Evander. He is a similar player to Lucho Acosta. I think going into 2025, it's a reasonable argument to say that he is a better player than Lucho Acosta going into this year. They have very different track records, but going into this year, you'd bet on Evander having a better season than Lucho, if none of the sort of disgruntledness was happening with either one.
Okay. All right. Like, sorry, I was about to say you're out of your skull, but continue.
Yeah. No. So let's assume they were just continuing on their career trajectories.
Oh, even Lucho's, then, I think Lucho's still better.
Maybe, but Lucho's hit his ceiling. Evander, we'll see. You give him a Luca Orishano and a Kevin Denke to play off of, could be fun.
No.
Chief, I know you got thoughts here.
No.
Would you take Evander?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills and I'm being gaslit by everyone. Number one, okay, Evander was an MVP candidate this year. Most anonymous MVP candidate I've ever heard of, because like he was you could have fired a cannon off last year online and not heard someone talking up Evander for anything. Like if you ask people to name the top 10 stars in MLS, 2% of the people would name Evander, and they'd all be in the greater Portland, Oregon area. Like, and I get that doesn't mean anything, but like, all of a sudden I'm seeing everywhere on Twitter that Evander is this great, incredible player. I'm like, where were y'all like 6 months ago when the actual season was going on? My main problem with Evander, though, is twofold. Number one, if we are going to replace Lucho Acosta with another DP, which we would need to in this situation, I do not want to bring in someone that is currently having problems with their team. I don't care what the rationale is. I don't care how justified they are. I don't care if every piece of empirical evidence supports their point of view. I do not want to bring some other team's headache in. I don't care. I want to bring in a model citizen who wants to go to work, who fights through adversity. And if he's having a problem with his team, he quietly keeps on, does what he's supposed to do, keeps his mouth shut, and performs. I do not want someone that is giving interviews about how they were mistreated, about how promises were broken. The mere fact of bringing that out to the public instead of dealing with it behind the scenes with your agent and with the club tells me volumes about who this player is. Never met him, never talked to him, never really heard much about him until this past week. I want no part of a player that feels comfortable airing their dirty laundry like this out in public, especially when we're getting rid of a player who feels very comfortable airing his dirty laundry out in public. Like, I am gun shy after the Aaron Bupenza situation. I do not want to bring in another person that is combustible, that has their feelings hurt easily, whatever the case may be. I want a model citizen coming back in as the designated player. I know it's always possible, but this feels like you're walking into a punch. This feels like you're walking into a situation where you know this person has created problems or been at the center of drama at their current club. Let's go look for someone among the thousands of soccer players out there that is not creating drama actively at their current club. And number two, I'm sure Evander's good. Haven't watched a lot of them. Didn't watch a lot of Timbers games last year. That's on me. You know, maybe I'll start now. If the rumor mill heats up, maybe I'll watch go back and watch some Timbers games from last year. Here's what I know about Evander. If Evander's good, there's a better player out there somewhere else. Yes. And what I want from the next DP FC Cincinnati signs is when they signed Kevin Denke, he was the biggest spend in league history and something that was a game-changing signing. I don't want any player in MLS. I want a player that is better than any player currently in MLS. Go overseas, go someplace else, and go find me Evander +1. They're out there. The league and this club won't get better by acquiring other top MLS talent. It will get better by acquiring players that are better than current top MLS talent. That should be every team's mentality when getting DPs. Is the mentality should always be, I want a player that is better than anyone else playing in this league right now. And you don't accomplish that by signing players that are already in this league, especially with DP spots. Your DP spot should always be a game of one-upsmanship. And if you're not going to be engaged in one-upsmanship, then you lose the right at that point to say you're an ambitious ownership group, because the definition of lacking ambition is signing someone already here in this league to a deal here to play for your team. That's not ambitious. That is status quo. And maintaining the status quo in terms of talent is not ambition. I'm sorry. And I understand it's easy to say when it's not my money to spend, but there isn't a single player in MLS. I don't care who it is. You can name any player in MLS. I don't want them. I want the player that is one better than them that's playing in a better league. And I will die on this hill. I don't care. Come at me.
I love this take. I could not disagree more.
Why? All right. So here, hold on.
Yeah.
Do you think Evander is the best possible attacking midfield, the best attacking midfielder in the world?
No, I do not.
All right. Do you think that there are at least 25 to 30 better attacking midfielders than Evander in the world?
I'd say probably.
He doesn't even play for the Brazilian national team. Let's be real about who this guy is.
He doesn't.
He does not.
That is true.
Does not.
Lucho Acosta doesn't play for the Argentine national team either.
But like, if we're replacing Lucho Acosta, shouldn't we be trying to replace him with somebody better? Like, why are we looking for a Lucho replacement? Why don't we look for a Lucho improvement? Why are we looking for, like, go get the guy that's better than Evander? So he's out there. And until you have signed until MLS has the best attacking midfielder playing in MLS, there is always an opportunity to get a better attacking midfielder than anyone else in the league has. And you do that by going out of the league.
So two things with that. I love the idea. Don't get me wrong. If we could run and operate the team under those principles, I'm for it. We do run up against two realities. One of them is there is a limited pot of money that ownership is going to spend. And
I'm not going to pocket watch a billionaire. I'm not going to pocket watch a billionaire.
Making that argument. I get that. But there is a point where ownership is not going to drop $3 billion to bring in Mbappe. Like, I get that. There is a point. But then the other side of that is, even with ungodly amounts of money, you can't always recruit all the players. There's a reason why every single player doesn't play in Saudi Arabia. There's a reason why every single player doesn't play in China or didn't play in China at one point. There is a point where the players genuinely do not want to come. And then I'll throw out there is a risk. And this is something that Garth Lagerwey, one of, if not the greatest GMs in MLS, has made a point, and has mentioned this multiple times. He's made a point that there is a particular type of player they like to recruit that they think will do well in MLS. And one of the criteria they look for is a player who has either been successful in MLS or a player that has been successful in multiple leagues. So once you start narrowing down the number of guys that your ownership group can afford, are willing to come to MLS, let alone Cincinnati, and you think will actually translate, like Aaron Bupenza tracked a lot of that, was a bunch of money, was successful in multiple leagues. You dig a little bit deeper, I wasn't clear he's actually going to be all that great in Cincinnati, in MLS.
Head case. So, a little bit of a head case, a little bit of a womanizer.
So you get to the point where there is starting to be a smaller and smaller and smaller group of guys that you're actually recruiting from. And Chief, I know you didn't watch a lot of tape, but I'll read a couple of stats to you. You tell me if any of these make you happy. Goals and assists. He had 30 goals and assists, one less than Lucho Acosta. You want a FOT mob rating, just overall rating? The number one in the league last year was Lionel Messi with 8.29. Right after that, Ricky Puig with 8.17. Right after that, Evander. 8.06. Big chances created. Lucho Acosta topped the league with 26. You had Ryan Gold right underneath him with 24. Hani Mukhtar with 24. Evander was right there with 23. And you get to your expected goals plus expected assists per 90. He is 9th in the league. He way better than Lucho Acosta.
Hold on. Let me clear this up for a second.
Yes, please.
Are you trying to sell me on this player? Because all I'm hearing is that there's a lot of players better than him, and I'm not interested in that. I don't want a guy that's worse than Hani Mukhtar in any statistical category. I want a guy better. I want a better player.
He had 15 assists to Hani Mukhtar's 8 on big chances.
Yeah. Was he number one in any of those stats you read off?
He was not. Unfortunately,
he was not.
Lionel Messi was the top.
And Ricky Puig.
Lucho Acosta was the top of a couple of those lists.
Sure.
But here's the thing.
So I'm not interested. Not every single thing you read there. That's really nice for some other team that is cool with mediocrity.
26 years old. I don't care. Acosta's 32.
Yeah, most players are on the downside of their career at 26. Like most players have peaked and they're backsliding at that age. I want a better player. I'm not going to apologize. Do you believe Evander is the best possible attacking mid FC Cincinnati's ownership group could sign for FC Cincinnati?
So
yes or no question. It is a yes or no question, sir.
The answer is yes.
You really believe Evander? They cannot sign a better player than Evander.
So
that's wild.
If a better attacking number 10 was out there, I assume that they are already being recruited by an MLS team, or they play for such a good team that we're not going to get them to MLS.
So what you're saying to me, then why is Evander in MLS then in that case? Why is he not in one of those bigger leagues? That's the conundrum here, is that if he's so damn good, what's he doing here?
Great question. This is the conundrum of MLS. It is the disrespect of MLS. There's an argument that during Hani Mukhtar's MVP year, he was one of the 30 best German players on planet Earth. He should have been playing in the Euros for the German national team. but he plays in MLS, so he doesn't get it. Lucho Acosta outperformed so many of the other Argentine midfielders, including Alan Velasco, who just was signed from FC Dallas to go back to South America. That he should have been in the national team, but he's not. These guys get disrespected playing in MLS. And if ownership has a pot of money, let's say $30 million to spend on U22s and DPs and things like that, yes, I want that pot to be bigger and bigger and bigger. They should be spending $200 million a year on players.
Make it 40, make it 50, keep it going. Line goes up.
If there is a pot of money and you can go out and get the guy who is just about as good as Lucho, but actually it wants to be in MLS, but wants to play for a good ownership group, and you can save a couple of bucks to spend on some bigger, flashier U22s. And mind you, I believe this opens up another DP spot potentially. Oh, 3 DP models.
How would this open another?
You move to the 3DP model in the summer, and all of a sudden it's Denke, Evander, and insert Weston McKennie here, and all of a sudden we're looking pretty good.
All those stats you read just told me he is a bang-on average designated player in this league.
He's a top 5 designated player, with the other one being Lucho Acosta. I heard
a 9 in there somewhere. I heard a 9er.
That was expected goals plus expected assists, which is going to prioritize goal scorers. He played on a bad team. There's a reason why Portland is chasing a Kevin Kelsey. They are desperate for a striker to play alongside him. We have Kevin Denke at home. We've got his buddy. It would be so good. You got Evander underneath Orishano and Denke. Man, me and you could play midfield. That team's winning 5-1.
No, if you've seen me run, there's no chance. I'm greedy. I want better. There are better players than Evander. I want a better player than Evander. Sorry. I don't want somebody else. I have no interest in somebody else's garbage, Kevin. And this is somebody else's garbage.
Chris Albright, I know you're listening. Don't listen to Chief. Go get Evander if that's an option.
Go get a better player. Go to Europe. Go someplace.
If it makes you feel better, Chief, you can think of Evander as an upgrade on Obi, who would be sort of taking that DP spot. There you go.
Oh.
Yeah. So
you can't go from buying Kevin Denke to buying Evander. That's like it's like buying a brand new Range Rover and then getting a Toyota Corolla to sit next to it in the garage.
Evander is not a bad player, sir.
The Toyota Corolla is not a bad car. It's just not a car that an ambitious person drives.
Let me tell you a name that you did not hear on any of those lists. Cucho Hernandez. Diego Rossi, better than those guys. You and Grayson have been giving me so much grief that FCC should just go out and buy Cucho Hernandez. I am offering you a better Cucho Hernandez right now.
Well, it doesn't count if he doesn't bring Wilfred Nancy with him. Like that guy has black he has the dark arts. It's not fair. He's Darth Vader and Palpatine rolled into one in terms of ruining my days. Also, if you are listening to this in a Toyota Corolla, it's an incredibly nice car. It's a very cost. For the cost, it is a lot of car. I'm just saying that on the world football stage, if your owner comes in and says, "Hey, I bought the team a bunch of Toyota Corollas," you're going to get some side eyes, I think.
My favorite Onion article ever was I think it came out in like 2012 or 2015. It was like Toyota issues recall for 1998 Corollas as owners really should have bought something new by now.
Yeah.
Chief, let me put your hypothetical to the test though.
Okay.
Would you take for $10 million Cucho Hernandez?
Well, yeah, because it makes Columbus worse. That's a double whammy right there.
Portland worse, a team that we will play this year.
I'm not afraid of Portland. Portland is trash.
Think about how much more trash they would be.
Yeah, I'm not. No. I would take Cucho just to get him off Columbus. Is all I would do. It makes them directly worse. I mean, if we played Cucho not to play, if we paid him not to play, it would still be a good value for us.
We really should be threatening to recruit other people's DPs now just to unsettle them and force them to sit out and all that jazz.
Yeah, like we should have that was the whole point with buying the other club, is that somebody offers Cucho like $8 million a year, and then he becomes a malcontent because he's not making that in Columbus and they won't sell him.
The easiest layup in the world was buying Bordeaux and offering a package option for Nancy and Cucho.
Speaks French. Come. We'll offer you a vineyard too. You can have your own wine label as well.
What we could have had.
Chateau Wilford.
Not for nothing, FC Dallas is allegedly also in for Evander. So FC Dallas just really wants to buy somebody's expensive DP that
someone's malcontent DP. If you got a problem, come to Dallas, I guess.
They'll hook you up.
They got you.
One other name that was not at training and not a surprise, Alvaro Barreal. It does look like he is going to be on his way to Brazil. Wouldn't be shocked if that is all done by the time we record again. The trick there, though, the only new thing is all of the reporting on Barreal these days does not include the little with a purchase option tag at the end.
Oh, so all the reporters finally figured out that he didn't have any more time left on his contract? This is my shocked face.
If it is just a loan to get him off the books and clear the books, man, what a disappointment. What a sad end to the Alvaro Barreal story here.
Someday I'd love to read the tell-all. Just would love to know what it was that soured things, what that side of the story is, where it went from here. It is endlessly fascinating to me that there was never a market for Barreal in terms of an outright sale.
Yeah.
And it's not even like, FC Cincinnati was holding out for way too much money. I don't think there's been credible reporting that any team was offering a full-on purchase of Barreal for anything remotely resembling real money. Like, I'm sure somebody called for $1 million, but like a real transfer offer. I mean, I am curious if that was who misread the market here. If it was Barreal that misread the market, or if it was Albright that misread the market. The fact that they couldn't offload him for anything is staggering. And I mean, at this point, wouldn't you, for just 1 year left, wouldn't you sell him for $500,000 at this point? Like anything?
I assume they would take literally anything, because that 500,000 could be converted to GAM, because you can convert up to 3 million ish in GAM every year from the total accumulation of all the sales. So if you sold them for $10, you can turn that into $10 of GAM. It's a positive number coming back to you. The fact that no team in South America is willing to do, $250,000. $250,000 covers the salary cap hit of a U22 player. Like, it's nothing in terms of the transfer value. It has some value to FCC. Nobody's offering that. Insane.
I'm with the 2 buyout thing now. Why don't you just buy him out?
Maybe they're hoping somebody.
But like who? At this point, it's over. Like, who's going to buy him?
Does Indy 11 want his rights for $50,000?
Right. Just like trade him anywhere else. And like, honestly, at this point, why wouldn't you package him somewhere for $100,000 in GAM and be like, hey, if you can work out a sale where you make money, it's like a credit default swap of a transfer. Like, if you can make this valuable, you can have it.
You become the debt collector.
Yeah, you figure this out, man.
We'll give you an international spot and the right to this headache.
And a bunch of underwater mortgages in South Florida. You know, it's okay. Here we go.
Man.
You have the note. You hold the note on all the freshest big boys in Cincinnati.
That might be worth it.
Yeah. I would.
Yeah.
It would
be. I would love.
Yeah, it's a sad end, and I would love to hear some unfiltered Chris Albright on this at some point as to where this all went wrong. Because, God, where he was at the end of that Shield season, and how efficient this team was operating. Man, like it would seem like a foregone conclusion. Oh, of course he's getting sold this offseason. Somebody's going to pay big money for him.
Yeah.
Just weird.
Or worst case scenario, We got an MLS All-Star coming back next year. Let's run it back. Let's kick ass. And
is he like the worst interview of all time when like they want to do like a job interview with him?
His resume is written in Comic Sans.
Right. They ask him like, where do you see yourself in 3 years? And his answer is, in bed with your wife. Shit, don't say that.
No.
What's your greatest weakness? I care too much. I work too hard.
My greatest weakness. I will be looking for a new job before I even finish signing the contract on this job.
What is your number one goal at this at your new team? To immediately leverage myself to a bigger deal as soon as possible and hold my rights hostage, thereby making your job harder.
Yeah.
Was I too honest in that answer?
Tank the performance of everybody on your team to slightly improve my odds of more money.
Yeah, it's not good, Bob.
We did have a Patreon question that is immediately relevant to this topic here, and I'll ask it now. I have not seen a player contract. I don't know if you've read through one. I know Grayson has, but Sean Pace asks a question here. If a player doesn't show up, do they forfeit their income in that time period? For example, is Lucho giving up $12,000 every single day he fails to report? And yeah, hey, you want to lose the the backing of the fans? Let them learn that you earn $12,000 a day per the terms of your contract, and you are desperate to go somewhere else.
My understanding is all this is there's rules in the in each individual contract about this, about what the penalty is for not reporting for certain. There are certain dates that are considered mandatory attendance dates, and there are fines that go along with. Some of this is controlled by the collective bargaining agreement, I think. Some of this is controlled by individual player contracts. But yeah, my understanding is if you're, at least in MLS, if you're not showing up, you're not getting paid for whatever it is that's like pursuant to your contract terms. And at a certain point, not showing up, you can void a contract, like we saw with Aaron Bupenza this past summer, where his repeated failure to show up for team activities led to a contract termination, where they didn't actually have to buy him out. It was just a straight up, you're done here.
Yeah. And I don't think it's an automatic thing. I assume FCC.
The league would have to agree. The league would have to. The league would have to agree to it. The lawyers would have to agree that whatever it is, that there is a sufficient breach of the terms of the contract such that they would be on good grounds not being sued. And not for nothing, like, I think Lucho would love it if FC Cincinnati terminated his contract right now and he could walk free and clear wherever he wanted to go.
That's what I'm saying. I think that was definitely the difference between what Minnesota went through with Reynoso and what FCC did with Bupenza. Is Minnesota definitely was holding out for some sort of money coming back for Reynoso, and they eventually got it. He went to Tijuana, I want to say. He went to a team down in Mexico, and they eventually got a couple bucks. But like, he no-showed for like a year and a half, and they eventually got a couple bucks. FCC waited what felt like a couple of weeks, and they're like, all right, we're done. let's get out of this.
Yeah, speaking of Bupenza, he ran into some little bit of a problema on his new club. It's nice to know that some Tigers never change their stripes.
Yeah, he's playing in Romania, is it? Some an Eastern European country, and he had already had a controversy early on where the fans were booing him because they didn't think he was putting in the effort. Then he went on to score a bunch of goals for them. He started to win them back over, and then I think the latest dispute, and so many of these stories are written in foreign languages, so you're at the mercy of translation services on the internet, but it does seem like he is holding out for a new contract or refusing to come back to the team after an away game or some sort of training session elsewhere, and he is already trying to make a move to another team. So
cool.
Yeah, sweet.
Neat. Glad we're off that particular ride.
Yeah.
I guess the only other bit of FC news is we got a couple trialists in.
We do.
Love a good trialist.
Abdi Salim is trialing with the team, and
give me that next name, Kevin.
There's so many extra symbols over all of these vowels here. Nico, I got that one right.
Yeah,
so
there we go.
We got a Nico back,
but not that Nico.
Nico Hama I'm just blowing right past the umlauts here. Hamalainen. If I remember in German, I don't know if he's German, you treat the umlauts as if there's an E after the vowel. So it's a Jaime Leinen. I got nothing, man. This is so bad.
Tommy G is just praying this guy doesn't make the final roster. Like, he's praying to deities he didn't know existed anymore.
Nico and Salim. That's how I will refer to them going forward.
Nico H.
Yeah, Nico H, not the other Nico. Nico, let's see here. He is 27 years old, left back, played at QPR back in the day. If you were following Dual Nationals, he was a fun one. He's played for LAFC and LA Galaxy on loan. He was playing in Finland. And then Salim was drafted by Orlando City. He's 23 years old, but was last playing in Detroit on loan. So, wouldn't be shocked to see Nico sign, but
some supplemental roster types, probably.
Yeah, some FCC2. We're making up some numbers. I mean, as it stands right now, for the left back position, it is Brett Halsey or one of Yedlin and Powell, maybe Kubo if he shows back up, maybe Orishano, depending on who else gets signed and what other positions get filled. It's looking a little thin at left back, so not surprising that they're trying to see who else might be floating around out there.
Yeah, we'll see. Love a trialist though.
Yeah, one last piece. This will not shock anybody, but if you were holding out hope, you can go ahead and scratch this name off the list. Reading again from Damon's story, when following up on Chris Albright's comments about trying to bring back wingback Yamil Assad, Noonan said, quote, "At this point, Yamil will not be with us this season." So,
which is, again, if you're reading the tea leaves, it's DUN done with Lucho Acosta and FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, they felt like a package deal. I saw some stuff on Twitter that Assad was maybe being looked at by some teams in South America, some teams in Ecuador specifically. So we'll see where he ends up. But
we'll always have the memories of getting that much production out of a guy making like $85,000.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was pretty cool.
Maybe the true lesson here is that there are no discount contracts. Yeah. every discount contract is a fight waiting to happen.
It's boy, wouldn't it be great if we could get like a lot of players performing it under their contract value and then the monkey's paw curls. Right. Also, but it is another reminder that if you are listening to this segment and thinking what an unrelenting parade of just bad news, I don't know about you, Kevin, but like maybe put a bow on this segment with this idea of this. I am not all that worried. I'm happy Luka's back. Maybe the panic level would be a little higher if Luka Orishano wasn't playing or wasn't back in town. But Luka is back in. Kubo's situational sort. You know, at the end of the day, he's under contract. When cooler heads prevail or rationality prevails, I think that the message will be that, you know, you took this club for a ride for a couple of years. Maybe it's time to put in a little more work and we're all going to be even in the long run. He signed here for a reason. He likes it here.
Yes.
Or he's saying that he likes it here and he just didn't have a lot of great options elsewhere. Either way, he chose to sign here. Every bit of information we have, though, is that his family likes it here. He likes it here.
Yeah. Maybe
the contract situation just doesn't encourage hustling back. And that's just where we're at. But that I expect will get resolved. He is a consummate professional. He's a consummate team first guy. We've seen that evidence of that throughout the years that he's been here. Not worried. And as to the Lucho thing, it's frustrating, but I'm going to choose to believe at this point until I hear news to the contrary that they've had since November to know that like they're probably going to have to move on from Lucho. Yeah, I would assume they have a plan in place. And it sounds like Tom Bogert doesn't start talking unless there's something going on. And bring up Lucho's government name specifically in these stories leads me to believe there's probably something going on. So I'm not going to panic. There's 2 more weeks left in the European transfer window. The MLS transfer window goes on for ages beyond that, for months. Albright has a history of, it frustrates all of us, but he moves slowly when it comes to making signings. Sometimes players don't arrive until a week or two after the season has started. At this point last year, none of us really knew how great Luca Orishano was going to be. Yamil Assad was a complete unknown. The idea that DeAndre Yedlin would be playing for this club was what the hell? I don't think the Kevin Kelsey deal had been completed yet at this point. I think it completed till way later.
The last day of the window, yeah.
So until someone gives me a conclusive reason to panic that they're punting or whatever it is, I'm just going to sit back and I'm still going to react to when the news happens, but just my overall demeanor is just let's relax and let's let the process play out. We are very early in this process still.
Yep. Yeah, I'll give you 2 more pieces of information that'll make everybody feel a little happier. Maybe this first one won't start off as happy as you wanted to, but it works its way out. Matt Miazga, Nick Hagelin, making their way back from injury. They've been doing field work this week, so they are getting closer and closer and closer to being up and running and starting, which is good to see. We're definitely going to need Miazga and Hagelin both to be healthy and good. But here's the piece that I absolutely loved. On newcomer Brian Anunga, Pat Noonan said, quote, "He's probably been one of our top performers." So there you go.
Yeah.
They like what they see out of Brian.
Or that's a stunning indictment of everybody else that's training one or the other.
No, Chief, this is a good positive
thing. Good vibes. This is a good vibe.
We got a cheap supplemental starter again. That's what Anunga is for us. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that this time a year from now, it's going to be a contract dispute. So
you're right. when he wins over the starting job over Obi, he'll be demanding his DP contract.
There is plenty of time. And look, even if we end up with Evander, it'll be good content because I will be profoundly disappointed. So
I'll say again, if Tommy Scoops is mentioning our name and Evander in the same breath, it's not nothing. I'll send you some highlight clips. We'll get you hyped by next show.
Yeah.
When we got to talk about his
those highlight clips against MLS opponents?
Probably.
Pass.
Oh no.
Does that do it for segment 1, Kevin?
That does it for segment 1. Segment 2, let's hit a couple of these Patreon questions and let's get out of here. Before we get on over to the next part of the episode, I do want to tell you about our friends over at Cincy Shirts. That is right. New year, new you. Go pick up some new threads over at Cincy Shirts. They got what you're looking for. They got Cincinnati sports. They got Cincinnati culture, Cincinnati geography, Cincinnati businesses. Everything you're looking for, they got it over there at cincyshirts.com. Hey, when you're there, use the promo code ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps. They knock 10% off your entire order for using that one. And if I don't mind dropping this one, we sell merch through Cincy Shirts. That's right. You want a Post shirt, a Cincy shirt from Cincy Shirts? Check them out. It is good stuff there. We will have new designs for the new year, but they're not there yet. So this might be your last chance to collect some of these designs. You want an Opie shirt, one of the 12. They got some good stuff there. Hey, they're not just online. They're in person as well. Go check them out in Loveland and in Northern Kentucky. They've got 2 fantastic locations. They will print on demand. You can work with them, come up with maybe a little goofy idea. They'll work with you, I promise. And again, the promo code, ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps. They knock 10% off your order. That works on Post merch as well. Want to support us twice? Absolutely, you can do that. So huge thank you again to our friends over at Cincy Shirts, and a huge thank you to you, listener, for using that code. All right, we are back. And
Kevin,
please.
Do we have any sponsors yet?
Well, we still have our good friends at Cincy Shirts.
There we go. I shout them out again. They're still riding with us. Everybody else has abandoned us. Cincy Shirts still there.
So
go use the promo code. Go buy some. We gotta get some new gear up for the season. We can get some new gear up for the season.
I've got a couple of designs in the works. I need some other people to step up because I'm not the world's best designer.
No, neither am I.
But we've got some ideas. We've got some designs. Look, if there is a T-shirt or a phrase or something from the show, some idea that has made you laugh that you said you wanted on a T-shirt, hit us up. We got an ideas and feedback channel in the Discord. Throw it in there. We'll figure it out. We'll mock it up. We'll see if people like it. Enough people throw a thumbs up or a fire emoji under the idea. We can we can talk to our friends over at Cincy Shirts. But yeah, definitely need some new merch this year, and
we'll get on it. We'll get on that. And if you've reached this point in the show and you haven't turned off already, and you own a local business, number one, are you hiring? Number two, do you want to sponsor the Postcast? If you want to sponsor the Postcast, DMs are open. Email contact@thepostcincy. We are soliciting sponsorships for the upcoming soccer season. We can promise you that your name will be pronounced correctly in the ad read and absolutely nothing else.
Yes.
Kevin has a pitch package he'll send to you. Kevin actually designed a pitch package. Look at that, right?
I mean, it looks pretty professional, if I do say so myself. So,
because you got to, we got to do this because when we launch the secret MLS show that we're not going to promote, we definitely need some income coming in to justify doing another podcast to our various significant others.
Yeah, another podcast, especially one that, will have its own hosting rights or hosting fees and things like that.
Yeah.
We'll have to spend some money on that. So
yeah. But we won't promote it. We won't use the money to promote it, though. You got to find it on your own. You got to find it.
Don't be silly. Don't be silly.
It's going to be a Goonie adventure to figure out where this is posted.
I want to buy like a billboard in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. Cincinnati, Iowa.
Oh,
I would love to put a billboard there.
We're doing targeted digital ads in Cincinnati, Iowa.
You already live in Cincinnati. Root for the soccer team.
Yeah, away days, Cincinnati, Iowa. FC Cincinnati theoretically represents you, too.
That's true. Oh my God, that would be free off season or mid season content. FC Cincinnati,
that would
go start it.
Wait, is there a mall we can open a kiosk in there? There has to be a mall in Cincinnati, Iowa.
Let's go look up things about Cincinnati, Iowa.
we got the FCC kiosk in Cincinnati, Iowa.
Well, Chief, you ask about a mall. I've got some bad news.
No malls.
According to the 2020 census, there is a population of 290 people.
Well, okay, so all we need to get is like 29 fans, and then 10% of the town will be FC Cincinnati supporters.
That's what I'm saying. All right, let's see. Now I'm heading over to the maps section. I got to look up
in Appanoose County, Iowa. Ooh, this is God's country right here. 290
shot going to Cincinnati, Iowa.
You gotta love when the Wikipedia article says notable person, not notable people.
Just the one guy.
Just one. Rick Matthews, who is a Major League Baseball coach and scout.
Okay. It would appear that the only business in Cincinnati, Iowa is the Old Square Country Store in parentheses, bulk foods, deli, bakery, Poly Furniture. What is Poly Furniture? Are they selling polyester furniture? There is no website, which does not surprise me.
We need to buy some targeted Google ads and some algorithm ads for the Postcast in Cincinnati, Iowa.
I want to put a billboard up.
It can't be that much money. Listen to the Postcast. What do you think the odds are that of the 290 people in Cincinnati, Iowa, one of them is an MLS fan?
Iowa's a funny one because they're kind of like Iowa for Major League Baseball is always funny because they get blacked out from like 9 teams. It's just sort of assumed that Iowa is just loving the Chicago teams and St. Louis and the Twins and the Royals. Like they get totally screwed. There's got to be one, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, but it's going to be like a 9-year-old who's a Messi fan.
Right. He's got to. Do we really want that person listening to the Postcast?
Yes.
The answer is yes. Yes, we do.
Cincinnati, Iowa.
You know what the sad part is? I will bet you every person in Cincinnati, Iowa has met every U.S. presidential candidate over the last 15 to 20 years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure
And
there's
for
been
that matter, every vice
like a
president.
whistle stop tour at that damn whatever you were talking about, the feed and seed store.
Yeah. The old Country Square store, yeah, and Poly Furniture, which
Oh yeah, you absolutely know that John Kerry and John Edwards were both barnstorming through there back in the early 2000s.
It's Trump's third favorite Iowa city. Come on now, Cincinnati,
Exactly right.
Iowa.
All right, so we got all right, on the agenda before the season starts. We have to get sponsors for this show. We've got to launch the secret MLS show we don't tell anybody about, and we've got to buy a billboard in Cincinnati, Iowa.
I am 100% sending some emails to some sign companies in Iowa. How much is it?
It wouldn't cost more than $20 to saturate like every YouTube video with ads for the postcast. Like every time you watch, like for the 10 people that actually own a smartphone in Cincinnati, Iowa, they will be so sick of seeing ads for the postcast.
We're going to get a bunch of bad reviews from like these poor farmers that were ruining their internet experience.
290 people. All right. That probably means about 75, 80 households probably. We could send them all like a piece of mail. Listen to the postcast, like a flyer.
Well, here you go, Chief. Wikipedia. Oh, that's the 2000 census, which is not great. But there were 180 households, 30 of which had children under the age of 18.
There you go.
Our target demo is in Cincinnati, Iowa.
We would add that to the pitch packet. Come sponsor the postcast, the #1 soccer podcast in Cincinnati, Iowa.
Take that, Cincy Soccer Talk.
That's right. Fuck you. What are our Patreon questions? Jesus.
We own Cincinnati.
Yeah, we cornered the market.
Iowa. We got some good questions. Yeah, if you want to support us, we need
if you want to support our billboard in Cincinnati, Iowa.
If you want to pay for a billboard in Cincinnati, Iowa, you can support us on Patreon. That's where folks send us a couple of bucks a month. Helps keep the website and the podcast afloat. Helps keep us in business here. And as a part of that, you get to ask a question. Man, there's some good questions here, Chief. I think this one's directed at you, and it comes to us from Key, who asks, is the club still ambitious? Is this an ambitious club?
Is this an ambitious club? TBD. No, the Kevin Denke move was very ambitious. That's an incredibly ambitious move. Set the record for transfer. The Aaron Bupenza move was an ambitious move. Yeah. That was ambitious to buy a designated player where there was probably no hope of ever recouping the cost. Like your recouping the cost was goals scored and trophies won, which mission accomplished. Goals were scored and a trophy was won.
Yes.
The club attempted to be ambitious last summer, and that's what's the old awful poster that they have on elementary school walls. You reach for the moon, and if you fail, you'll still be among the stars.
Yeah.
They were reaching for the moon and didn't quite grab it, and didn't quite end up among the stars either. There was sort of a Elon Musk Starship crash landing, unfortunately, last season. But unlike Grayson, I will give them points for effort there. Being ambitious, targeting some big time talent. Yeah. But here's the fun thing about ambition. You can't say I used to be ambitious. Ambition is it's a present tense word. You always have to be ambitious. There is no past tense of ambitious when it comes to, running a sports team. So they're going to have to prove they're an ambitious club with how they handle this Lucho Costa situation. An ambitious club gets the spot cleared and gets someone in immediately for the start of the year. Yeah. An ambitious club does not let the DP spot go to waste. An ambitious club does not do something that ties their hands to make a replacement. So
an ambitious club does not make Luca Orishano a DP.
Yeah, no, an ambitious club doesn't do that. Like an ambitious club goes out and I'll say this, an ambitious club does not sign another MLS player to replace Lucho. They go out there and they spend and they acquire the best possible player they can to replace the most important player on their team. This is an MVP candidate you're talking about replacing. you got to go out and you got to shoot big. So, yeah, I think they are an ambitious team, and they've got to, unfortunately, rent is due on that title every single day and every single transfer window. So let's see what they do.
Yeah. I think this club is ambitious. I think right now there's a couple of things that are making fans feel antsy that is not the club's fault. One of them is the club's hands are being tied right now by Barrial and Lucho Acosta. That a lot of these moves can't happen until we know the results of those moves. So if one or both of those guys are able to fetch something of a transfer fee, great. If Lucho is able to come to terms with Dallas and Dallas sends us back $12-15 million for Lucho, now the team can start doing some stuff. Things can start moving around. If Lucho is trying desperately to wait until there's a mutual buyout or something like that, or a termination of the deal, that's going to suck, and that's going to make this club frozen for a little longer. And it's not even necessarily the fault of the club, at least in terms of how the accounting shakes out. The other thing is this team has a lot of its starters already set, and they broke the MLS transfer record moments after the season ended. So like if the Denke news dropped today, you'd feel very different about this team.
Right.
But it feels like Denke's been on the team for 3 months now. It's
somehow he's old news because we've known he was coming since like before the season was over almost.
Right.
Like before MLS Cup.
Yeah.
We knew that Denke was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if this team wasn't waiting on selling someone to get more GAM, if they could just say, hey, we would like to exercise our option to spend $3 million more in GAM, they'd be doing it and we'd be making moves right now. It is just a function of the salary cap that I think is preventing this team from flexing its spending muscles right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, I eviscerated Gerard Nijkamp when he was GM of this team, and I'm not going where you think I'm going. So please don't accuse me of comparing Gerard Nijkamp to Chris Albright. What I am saying is I eviscerated Gerard Nijkamp when he was GM. Before we even had a podcast, I was accused widely of being overwhelmingly negative online, of being a toxic, in fact, in my takes about Gerard Nijkamp. And my point is that he is paid to do hard things.
Right.
You are paid to do hard things. We said this about Albright during his first year when they were struggling to get Matt Miazga into the club.
Right.
You are paid to do hard things. The difference, we were talking earlier about me being a midfielder for this club. I can go be a GM of FC Cincinnati and not sign players. Right. I could be great at that. I would be phenomenal. If the requirement was to go and then tell you afterwards all the things I would have liked to have done had those options been available to me, I'd be great at that. I'd do all these great interviews. I would talk about how close we were to all sorts of stuff. I can do that. Right. Why you pay Chris Albright the big bucks and why you put your trust into Chris Albright is that he is paid to do hard things. And right now with the salary cap situation of this team and the GAM and the player situation like you're talking about, where they're being held hostage by some players, some of which predate Albright being here, some who he gave new contracts to that maybe he is now regretting a little bit. He's paid to do hard things, and sorting this situation out is hard. So I have an expectation that Albright does this. There's still time to do it. To have expected that it would be done right now, right this second, I think is unrealistic. But I expect him to sort the hard things out, just like I did with Nijkamp and just like I've done with every other person that's run this team. I expect hard things to be done. Yeah.
Yeah. The judgment will be passed when the winter window is closed, and then when the summer window is closed, and then when we look at how the team performed over the year and how many trophies came into the club. We'll have these conversations as we get a little closer to the season, but I think in general, the expectation still is trophy or bust for this team. And
trophy or bust. And you know what? Not for nothing. I get that the idea is you can win MLS Cup getting hot at the end.
Right.
And in fact, New York Red Bulls rode a hot streak at the end of the season all the way to the Cup final that they probably had no business being in, given how their form was throughout the year.
Us, Miami, and Columbus all getting knocked out in the first round
Certainly
was always going to make for a goofy final there.
But having said that, I'm sympathetic to the take as a fan. The games may matter more at the end. The games cost the same at the start.
Yes.
And I'm a season ticket holder for this team, like a lot of people are. I will the temperature on Albright and the shelf life on the term ambitious will, number one, ratchet up, and number two, expire quicker if they go into this season non-competitive on the promise that it'll get better in the summer, because they ain't refunding me for these games if the team is looking like butt for the start of the year. And I hate to say it, no Lucho, you're going to have to do some work convincing me this team's going to be competitive at the start of the year until that situation gets sorted.
Yeah. So
But
we'll see what it looks like.
There's time.
But to answer the question succinctly, I say the club is still ambitious. Yes. I think they got to prove that ambitious. They aren't. I think that burden is in that direction. Very different question from Scott Wilson, Chief. If you were selected to be on MTV's Pimp My Ride in your 20s, what would have been the job or hobby exhibit latched onto and gone over the top with your car? I love this question so much.
Okay, so in my 20s, I was driving a early 90s model Jeep Cherokee. The old school boxy Cherokee design.
Yeah.
What would exhibit have latched onto? I mean, I was huge into the Cincinnati Reds then. I was like a diehard. I was, thousands of posts on redzone.com back in the day. Like, friends and I were going to games on the cheap all the time, bringing food into the stadium. Oh. That would be way up there. Still not as big into pro wrestling, but that was like right on the heels of the 1990s WWF. I don't know how exhibit's going to work that into Pimpin' My Ride.
True.
Yeah, probably something Cincinnati Reds, just because I was a diehard Reds fan when they were awful. Awful back then. I knew all the prospects. I was following the Louisville Bats. I was following the Lookouts. I was following Dayton. Like I had a subscription to Baseball America, reading about all these prospects and stuff like that.
That's how you know you're in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I was baseballreference.com, number one clicked on website for me. I was huge into the Reds back then. So it probably would have been something like, yo, dog, I heard how much you like Aaron Harang. Well, here's Aaron Harang with your brand new Jeep Cherokee.
Chief, was that the same Jeep Cherokee that I knew?
No, that was the Jeep Patriot that you knew. I dabbled back. So I had a Jeep. I had a Cherokee. My first car was a Sable that I drove out here from Virginia when we moved back to Cincinnati. And then I had a Cherokee that got plowed into driving back from the movie theater one day that I worked at in Milford. I bought another Cherokee because I was addicted to the game. And went away from the Jeep brand for a little bit, thought I could go home. Turns out, once they got bought by that Italian company and became Stellantis, not a kind of car you want to own. So, the Patriot was not great. The Patriot was, it got the job done, but that's a great question. Apparently, if you go online, a lot of these cars from Pimp My Ride, you can still buy them. Like they're all fucked up and rusting out because they were putting things in the car that shouldn't be there, and it screwed up the weight distribution, and like the seals were like not waterproof anymore and whatever. No trunk space because it was filled with subwoofers and stuff.
I know a lot of them were stolen or were broken into and robbed because if you go back and watch like the beginning of those episodes, they go find these kids who were like not living in great neighborhoods. No. And then they go park some $50,000 car on the street.
Oh, you know what it would be legitimately if it wasn't the Reds? It was my friends and I we still do. We don't get to do it as much because we're obviously all older. But like in our 20s and early 30s, we're big into like, let's go drive to this concert and go tailgate, or let's go tailgate this event right here. So like something that had like tailgating supplies to go see, Dave Matthews for the 1,000th time, or we're driving up to Columbus to go see a show at Polaris or something like that. We were big into tailgating life.
That would be the way to do it.
Yeah. How about you?
I had a Chrysler Sebring, not the convertible, mind you.
Never mind.
Yeah,
Then.
I know.
It would be really funny if it was a Toyota Corolla. But.
Toyota Corolla. No, actually, so this is funny. It was like an early 2000s model Sebring. But then after that, I went backwards in time and ended up in a 96 Toyota Tercel.
Ooh,
which is,
okay. Yeah, they don't even, yeah. I love when you can say that I drove a car they don't make anymore. Like at one time I owned a Pontiac, and it's like, that's just not the same anymore.
The Tercel, I think the spiritual successor was the Toyota Yaris, which I then drove after that. So
a man had type.
Just the treat my car like an appliance. But mine would have been absolutely Xbox themed. I would have had the most obnoxious neon
glowing
green thing.
Yeah.
Yes. And just like all of the glory of like that Xbox 360 aesthetic with like the blades menus and neon would have been everywhere. There would have been game controllers everywhere.
Yeah, each hubcap would have been one of the colored buttons on the Xbox controller.
100%. There'd be screens in the trunk, screens in the back of the car or the back of the headrests. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I absolutely would have been robbed.
And you would have had to drink a Mountain Dew can in order to get to work.
I need to drink my Mountain Dew Code Red activation can.
And if you get that joke, you are definitely one of the 12.
Man. So great question. That would have been it. I did not get to comment on this. You guys did a great job covering it. Kate D asked about Schmigadoon. I will just say I have watched it. Grayson clocked it perfectly before you even read the description, and it is very good. I absolutely love it.
I'll give it a shot.
I did not watch season 2, but season 1 was fantastic. Let's see. We got one last question here. Oh, this one will make you annoyed, and it'll lead to a great segue for me. John Jolly asks,
all right.
Imagine FIFA comes to every national organization and insists on pro rel by 2030. Now, John, just to be clear, I think that would only be like 7 nations, but I'll continue.
So they'd be able to spend some time with each one of us.
Yeah. If you were the head of U.S. soccer, how would you set it up? How many up and down, a relegation playoff, multi-year point accumulation table, reduce the table size at each level? Let's assume the U.S. has 4 tiers for this discussion, but if you want to add more, I'll allow it. Thank you, John.
All right.
Will your plan be one that makes people happy, or will it anger all the right people on pro-rel Twitter? Chief, how do you feel about like a malicious compliance 30-year aggregate score for pro-rel type thing?
So if malicious compliance is out the window,
okay.
If that's out the window, because we like total point accumulation over 100 years or something like that. Yeah. Right. If malicious compliance is out the window, I think that if I was forced to include pro rel in MLS, I think that number one, you would have to set a minimum threshold point whereby if you are north of that, it does not matter if you're in last place, you are still safe.
Interesting.
The idea of that, like just because you finish at the bottom, that you must be relegated, I think that's nonsense. Because if you have an objectively, like everything goes wrong, but you still hit the point threshold, I think you should be safe in that regard.
Yeah.
If you fall below the point threshold, I think you should have to fall below the point threshold for a number of years consecutively, or so many years out of so many years in order to be relegated. I think it should be difficult to be relegated given the amount of investment that MLS teams have accumulated.
Yeah.
I think that in addition to that, I think that if you're not going to do it that way, I think that if you fall below the point threshold, I think every team should get like an immunity idol where like you can cash it in. You earn it in some way. Like if you win Shield, you have an immunity idol that you can cash in to avoid being relegated, just to because here's the problem with pro rel in the United States. We could do a full episode of this. I know Grayson wants to.
Yeah.
Pro rel in a salary cap league is nonsense. Because if you cannot, like, if you have a player that tears their ACL and it's like your DP and you can't go and buy another DP, or if like you lose too many players and you can't use the season ending injury on all of them, then that's just not fair. Like, you're being relegated because freak injuries happened and all of a sudden your fan base suffers because, you know, like that situation with Miazga out in San Jose, their field is shit.
Right.
We lose a player and all of a sudden, like, that would be something that might lead us to be relegated. No, F out of here with that completely.
Yeah.
Then on the other side, there would have to be, if you want to participate in pro rel, it would be like table stakes to, if you want to be in USL and you don't want to participate in pro rel, that's fine. You can participate in USL and you're cool. But if you want to participate and have the option to move up to MLS, there would have to be a requirement of, you must have a stadium with X amount of capacity, with all of the amenities required of a professional stadium. You can't play on a baseball field. You can't play in a rented facility. It can't have like bleachers. It has to have actual seats. It has to have this much capacity. And if you have all that and you want to compete as part of pro rel, fine. But like, there has to be something to incentivize teams, not just to be like, oh, I'm going to be the cheapest team possible on all of the amenities. I'm going to have a billionaire buy us, spend on salaries and move up. There's got to be more than something that's just that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those ideas are great. I love the idea of a playoff that is very common around the world, where the team that would be coming up has to play a 1-game playoff or a 2-legged aggregate score thing to see who can actually outdo each other. I always like something like that. I do think that the National League being or like the top league being national makes sense, maybe even the second league. But then after that, I think you very quickly have to regionalize the league. So in this scenario where like it's all owned by one entity, which would be its own can of worms, right? Like if USL does exist as its own separate thing and MLS is its own separate thing, you have to sort of assume that they all monopolize each other here. Yeah. You would need some regional tiers and things like that, and some sort of pathway to founding a new team. And maybe you could found a team and jump the ranks a little bit, or maybe you have to start in a particular regional league. And I think especially the country of this size, whatever system you have has to be flexible to the changing geography of the promoted and relegated teams. Like, you could imagine a situation where 4 Western Conference teams are eventually relegated and 4 Eastern located teams are promoted, and all of a sudden your whole league is starting to shift geographically one way or the other. It could get very awkward. And then you do that at the lower levels where teams are a lot more sensitive to travel costs. You could send some teams out of business just by promoting or relegating their 2 nearest teammate or 2 nearest league mates. So
I have said this before, I'll say it again here. I do not think pro rel makes any sense in the United States. And I think if you were starting every soccer league from scratch elsewhere in the world, they would all use the American system. I don't think any league starting up from scratch right now would use pro rel. And the only argument in favor of pro rel is it makes losing more exciting. Like, it makes games at the bottom more exciting for people that don't follow the team. It's miserable to follow a team that's about to get relegated. And there's so much more competition in this country. If FC Cincinnati was relegated to USL, they would fold within 5 years from lack of fan interest, because everyone would move on to do something else. Like, the hardcores that like were there in the USL years, they'd probably keep their tickets. Ain't nobody keeping their tickets for USL at the prices they're charging right now. They got a note to pay on the stadium. They've got a note to pay on Mercy Health training. People will get into the Reds. They'll get into the Bengals. They're not going to follow minor league soccer after they've already had a taste of what the big time looks like. And it makes, for any number of reasons, pro rel just does not make sense in the United States for a sport that has a foothold, but struggles to keep it, I would say.
You know, a league I think would actually be really well suited for this is baseball. I think baseball would be really well suited for this.
College football.
College football is
like
the
tailor-made.
dream. Yes,
tailor-made.
yes.
Like
or even college basketball. But yeah,
there's the future of college football. The future of college football is with all this NIL money and whatnot, is that you have the SEC and the Big Ten. Those are the two leagues that compete for the national title. The SEC is one conference, the Big Ten is the other conference. Now they're nationwide, so like West Coast, East Coast geography doesn't matter at all. Yeah. And then the bottom two teams in the SEC each year get relegated down to the Sun Belt or the Mountain
ACC
West
in this case,
for the Mountain West or whatever. The top two teams in the MAC and the the Big 12 get promoted to the Big 10. And pro rel in college makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
You've already got the small schools. So
Right. And there's a reason why pro rel around the world was generally tied to the amateurism of the sport. You know, these leagues and these teams resisted professionalization for an extremely long time. Like baseball was professionalizing in the 1860s. You look at soccer in England, and it's not until like way later in like the 1910s and stuff where guys are starting to make some money on this. So at least I should say legally, they were all getting paid under the table.
And again, I will say this again, if you're a fan of Cincinnati sports in general, I don't know why you'd ever be in favor of relegation because every team you follow at some point would have been relegated at some point during your adult lifetime.
I will say, John, to answer your question, I have a pro rel manifesto, which I will publish.
Of course he does.
And it includes a lot of the ideas that Chief mentioned. So there you go.
There you go.
I think that is going to do it for Patreon questions. If you haven't asked your question, which not a lot of people do, I appreciate the sort of free money that you're offering.
Ask your question, please.
You get a question. It could be a short one.
Right.
Ask your questions. That'll be good. We do have a few more. So if we haven't answered your question, I promise we will get to it.
You're going to win because Grayson will hopefully be back off the slopes for the next time you'll get his answers for these questions. So I always feel bad when we only answer the Patreon questions and it's only two of us.
I agree.
So I feel like we're robbing people of 1/3 of their of their answer. But look, I'm gonna end on this because we've been yapping at you long enough for this. Wherever you are right now on this fine day, I understand that it feels like we're going through it. I understand that it feels like other teams are getting better. FC Cincinnati is just having more problems. It's going to be okay. Every season since Chris Albright has been here, no matter what the situation was, in 1 year it was Brenner once out, and we ended up with Brenner for 2 games, and then he effed his way out of Cincinnati. There was rumors about fights down at Sarasota or in Clearwater. It got sorted.
Yeah.
Every year it feels like there's some sort of a thing going on. Barrial was a problem last year too.
Yeah.
He showed up for 1 day and then was out the door.
Beach volleyball. Yeah.
Played beach volleyball 1 day. And then it was like, we're gone. Take my thighs elsewhere. It is going to be okay. There are moves that I don't know about, that you don't know about, that are in the works. There always are. 1 year it was Yerson Mosquera. 1 year it was Luke Orishano or Kevin Kelsey. There are moves you don't know about because Chris Albright, like all real G's, moves in silence like lasagna. It's going to be okay. So just relax until it's time to panic. And we'll let you know when it's time to panic because we're going to tell you how to be a fan, right? So that's all that I've got. Kevin, any final words for the people?
No, I think that pretty well covered it. Hey, it's off season. Let's enjoy this.
No, fuck Columbus then.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast. It is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com or just click a link in the description to check out some of our written work. It also has links to our social media accounts across all sorts of different platforms, including YouTube, where we are trying to do more and more video content. Please, dare I say it, like and subscribe and leave a comment. But no, that would be really, really helpful. I also want to give a thank you to Jim Trace and the Makers. They're a local Cincinnati band who provided all of the music for this episode. We love having them on board. You can check them out. Again, link in the description of this episode to find out where they might be playing shows next or where you can listen to more of their music. Also want to give a massive, massive thank you to the awesome and very attractive patrons over on Patreon. It is a voluntary subscription that people take out with no real promise of anything extra that keep this show afloat. And we are so, so thankful to those of you that have decided to take that commitment. If you do like the show, or at least just want to engage with other people who have listened to the show and want to talk about FC Cincinnati, MLS, soccer, or really anything else, you can go on over to Discord. Again, link in the description. Lots of links in the description where you can find a link to the Discord. That's where we are keeping the conversation going 24/7. It feels like it's a really fun group of people in there just talking about FC Cincinnati. And like I said, just about everything else. And finally, I'll say it. If you liked this episode, and given the fact that you've made it all the way to the end, I have to assume you either like it or for some reason cannot reach the stop button. Please share this episode with a friend or family member or someone who likes FC Cincinnati. The best way for us to grow is from a personal recommendation from somebody who likes it. And if that's you, please tell other people. And if you don't have any friends, feel free to give us a review on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We'll take anything we can get. But again, a huge, huge thank you to everybody for listening to this show. I am blown away that anybody listens to this. So again, I well and truly mean this. Thank you so much for listening.